The money decisions you make in your 40s were programmed into your brain before you ever stepped foot in a kindergarten classroom. Not by your parents lecturing you about savings. Not by watching commercials. But by something far deeper, far more invisible, and far more powerful than anything you have ever been told to fix. And here is the part that should genuinely disturb you. Almost every piece of financial advice you have ever received assumes that you are a rational adult making rational choices with rational information. None of it acknowledges that the wiring was done decades ago, in a brain that was not even fully formed yet. I did the math on what this costs you over a lifetime, and the results are not what you expect. Let me start with the neuroscience, because the numbers only make sense once you understand the biology. Between birth and age 7, your brain is operating primarily in what researchers call the theta brainwave state. Think of it as a sponge with no filter. Children in this phase are not analyzing information. They are downloading it directly into long-term memory as foundational belief. Every observation about money in your household, every tense conversation your parents had about a bill, every moment of abundance or scarcity you witnessed, every emotion you felt when someone said the word expensive, all of it was written into your subconscious as a permanent operating system. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a developmental biologist at Stanford, describes this period as a hypnotic download phase. The child's brain is literally more suggestible than an adult in a clinical hypnosis session. This is not metaphor. This is measurable neurological function. And what gets downloaded in this window becomes the hidden driver behind every financial decision you make for the rest of your life, unless you interrupt it intentionally. Here is where behavioral finance gets uncomfortable. The field has spent decades studying why people make irrational financial choices despite having access to correct information. The standard answer is cognitive bias, things like loss aversion, present bias, status signaling. But the deeper answer, the one the textbooks gloss over, is that those biases are not random. They are rooted in childhood emotional programming that was locked in before your prefrontal cortex had even begun to develop. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for long-term thinking, delayed gratification, and rational planning, does not fully mature until your mid-20s. But your emotional memory, the limbic system that tags experiences with feelings and stores them as survival rules, was fully operational on the day you were born. So the brain that recorded your earliest money experiences was pure emotion, with no logic available to balance it. That is the operating system running your net worth today. Now let me show you what this costs in real numbers, because this is the real math that nobody puts in front of you. Researchers at the University of Cambridge published findings showing that money habits in children are largely formed by age 7. We are not talking about preferences. We are talking about default behavioral patterns around spending, saving, risk, and generosity that persist into adulthood with remarkable consistency. Here is what that means in financial terms. If your early childhood exposure to money created a scarcity-based operating system, meaning you absorbed the belief that money is dangerous, unpredictable, or always running out, studies show you are statistically more likely to engage in a specific cluster of behaviors as an adult. Avoiding investments even when you have capital available, hoarding cash in low-yield accounts because it feels emotionally safe, making large emotional purchases during stress as a neurological self-soothing mechanism, and chronically undercharging for your professional value. Let me run those numbers. Take someone earning $120,000 a year at age 40 who carries a scarcity-based money script. Research from the Journal of Financial Therapy shows these individuals hold an average of 62% of their liquid savings in cash or cash equivalents, compared to 31% for individuals with security-based money beliefs. On a $200,000 portfolio, that behavioral difference represents approximately $80,000 in unrealized compounded returns over 15 years at a conservative 7% average annual return. That is not a financial mistake. That is a childhood program running on autopilot. And almost no financial advisor in the world is trained to address it at that level. The real math is not just what you invest. It is what your hidden drivers prevent you from letting your money rest and grow in the first place. Now let me give you the generational lens, because this is not a generic human problem. It is a cohort-specific wound, and understanding which wound is yours is the first step to rewriting the code. If you are Gen X, born between 1965 and 1980, your pre-7 money download happened in a household shaped by oil crises, stagflation, and the tail end of a manufacturing economy in visible decline. Many Gen X children watch their parents work with disciplined consistency and still fall behind. The hidden driver this creates is what behavioral finance researchers call learned financial helplessness, the deep, often unconscious belief that effort and outcome are not reliably connected when it comes to money. This is the great financial betrayal baked into your neurology before age 7. It produces a specific pattern in adulthood: high competence, high income, and a surprising inability to accumulate wealth proportional to earnings. You work harder. The number does not move the way it should. And you cannot figure out why, because the real reason is not in your spreadsheet. It is in your brainstem. If you are a millennial, born between 1981 and 1996, your early childhood money download occurred in the relative optimism of the late 80s and early 90s, but your financial coming of age happened during the 2008 crash. This creates a particularly disorienting split. Your subconscious was programmed with one set of beliefs, and then your young adult experience delivered a completely contradictory reality. You are quite literally the poorest rich generation, carrying higher education debt than any prior cohort, facing housing markets that were rational for your parents and irrational for you, and simultaneously being told that your financial struggles are a failure of individual discipline rather than the predictable outcome of structural betrayal. Xennials, that microgeneration born roughly between 1977 and 1983, occupy a particularly interesting psychological space. You had an analog childhood money script, meaning you absorbed beliefs about money in a pre-internet, pre-instantaneous world, and then your adult financial decision-making unfolded in a digital economy that operates on completely different rules. Here is the neuroscience bridge that most financial content will never show you. The hidden drivers created before age 7 are stored not in your conscious memory but in your procedural memory, the same part of your brain that stores how to ride a bicycle. You do not think about how to ride a bike. You just ride it. Your money behaviors operate the same way. They are automatic, fast, and largely invisible to the conscious mind. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's somatic marker hypothesis explains this precisely. The brain attaches emotional signals, what he calls somatic markers, to decision categories based on past experience. When you face a financial decision as an adult, your brain does not start from neutral. It runs the decision through every tagged emotional memory associated with money and produces a gut feeling that arrives before your rational mind has even engaged. That gut feeling is your 7-year-old operating system casting a vote. And in most people, that vote wins. This is why the psychology of secret wealth is not about secrecy in the traditional sense. It is about the internal, invisible architecture of belief that separates people who accumulate quietly and consistently from people who perform wealth without building it. The secret is not a strategy. It is the absence of a childhood program that says money is scary, money is shameful, money never lasts, or I am not the kind of person who has money. So what is the rational conclusion? Because this cannot end with a problem statement. Step 1 is identification, not blame. You cannot rewrite a program you refuse to acknowledge is running. The most sophisticated financial plan in the world will underperform if it is being executed by a brain that has a 7-year-old's emotional relationship with money underneath it. Sit with the question, what did I learn about money before I could read? Step 2 is what behavioral finance researchers call narrative restructuring. Your brain stores money beliefs as emotional memories, but it also responds to new narrative. Journaling, therapy, and deliberate exposure to contradictory evidence are not soft skills. They are neurological interventions. Every time you act against your fear-based money script and survive, your brain updates its somatic marker database. Small, repeated actions compound neurologically exactly the way money compounds financially. Step 3 is alignment between your real math and your hidden drivers. Most financial advice gives you a target number and a path to reach it. Rational wealth gives you something more important. The understanding that your target number will always feel slightly wrong, slightly dangerous, or slightly out of reach until you address what your brain downloaded before your 7th birthday. The money you are not building today is not a math problem. It is a memory problem. And memory, unlike markets, can actually be rewritten. Your pre-7 program has been running long enough. It is time to install an upgrade.